to the cloud. All right, so it is 2:56, so we do have a few minutes to let everyone kind of get in and get comfortable, and you're here watching the Stanley Law Leave No Stone Unturned webinar. Welcome to all of those of you. Thank you for registering ahead of time via Eventbrite and letting us know that you're going to join us. Thank you, thank you. And that's new for us. We just wanted to give people an extra way to get the information and know where to join us. And so welcome. We have with us today attorney Anna Robbins. Hi, Anna.
Hello, hello.
And of course, is it, Joe, is it infamous or famous? I don't know what it is.
Take your pick.
I think a little bit of both.
I think it depends on the day of the week.
Or whether you're in Wegmans with your face mask on now, or do people recognize you with
Oh, I don't think so. I never thought about that. I can just, I don't even,
you can just wear your mask
on. Be anonymous. That's actually, I never thought about it that way.
Right, right. And we're here with attorney Joe Stanley, because Joe knows, and we are talking today, we are talking business interruption, which Joe is going to walk us through, and we're going to take all your questions and give you straight answers to the best of our ability. And Anna is talking unemployment. Now we had a webinar, Joe, what, maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago now?
Yeah, I think it was 3 weeks ago, but yeah.
Time is in a different, we're in a little bit of a time warp feeling right now, so it passes differently than we're used to, but and we got so much positive response and feedback and continuous questions out of that, which is all good, keep them coming, that we decided to do this follow-up and dig a little deeper on two issues in particular that are universal for so many, and that is, again, business interruption coverage. So if you own a business in New York State, what's happening there on that scene, and unemployment, which is probably the #1 topic. So I am monitoring your questions on my cell phone. Send them on through just as we did the last time, and we'll answer them as we can. And then we'll also have some time at the end for Q&A. So with that, I want to pass the buck for just a moment to Joe so that he has the opportunity to say hi to y'all before we get started. Joe?
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is safe and enduring the closures and the dealing with family, friends, or yourself for indefinite periods. I understand it's trying, and hopefully things will start to slowly open, which is one of the reasons why we are having these webinars. Even though it's not our core business, we've had so many questions from our clients, potential clients, and just from people in the need. I find it necessary because whenever I get asked these questions, I'm supposed to know. Somebody said that to me the other day, but
what do you mean you don't know, Joe? You're supposed to know.
I have to read these regulations, and I have to read these things that have been put in place every time somebody asks me a question, because they lack clarity, or there are so many potential outcomes that it's hard for me to envision a layperson just figuring it out right away. And I'm sure Anna will agree that whether it's business interruption or whether it's unemployment, they're difficult questions and answers. And we I can relate. We do difficult things. We help people out. That is our core business, because we help people out who are hurt, injured, disabled all the time. And those regulations are complex, but they've been around for a long time. And the process for dealing with them, everyone understands sort of how they work. And, the insurance companies try to take advantage of them, and our job is to make sure they don't. But this is a little bit different. And so hopefully we'll be able to give you some information, generate lots more questions is what I think is going to happen. We've been getting them. We keep getting them. We keep getting novel approaches to the facts, and you may not get definitive answers. Sorry, you may be said it's fact specific, or you may hear things you don't want to hear. But unfortunately, sometimes it's good to know where you stand so you can deal with those versus hoping for things that will never happen. So,
Okay, all right. With that, then I think we're going to go first to Anna. And before we launch into your slides, Anna, because I know you've got some really good information. Some of this information has been shared previously, and some information is going to be completely new because, of course, that bobber keeps changing, right? And I mean, the horizon looks different as time passes and we get more and more information. Before you launch into your slides, we have a couple of questions already. I thought, let's, I just want to acknowledge that Tom, your question about your medical bill, and Janet, your unemployment process, we'll get to those questions as we can. I've got them, I know they're there. And so Anna, with that, why don't you share your screen?
Okay, so as we previously indicated, we're just going to do a brief review of unemployment insurance benefits and the pandemic unemployment assistance benefits under the Federal CARES Act. And then we'll talk about the new application and some of the reasons why claimants are experiencing some significant delays in receiving their benefits. I know that is probably the hottest topic of discussion right now. And just as a reminder, as Angela indicated, the eligibility requirements for regular UI and the federal programs was covered more in depth during the last webinar. So please check that out if you have not done so. Otherwise, we will also cover certain return to work safety concerns towards the end as well. So just a recap, for regular unemployment insurance benefits, if you worked in New York State within the last 18 months, you might be eligible if you meet the earnings requirements from your prior employment, lost your job through no fault of your own, and are willing, ready, and able to work immediately. Benefits usually are half of your average weekly wage up to a maximum of $504 per week and can last up to 26 full weeks during a 1-year period. Now, for those who were traditionally ineligible for unemployment insurance benefits, those such as self-employed workers, independent contractors, farmers, etc., and are unable to work as a direct result of COVID, you might be able to receive pandemic unemployment assistance, otherwise known as PUA, which I will also refer to throughout this presentation. Now, if you're eligible for either, your benefits will be extended up to 39 weeks, and you will also receive the additional $600 per week from the first week of April until July 31st, 2020. And just as another reminder, any claim you file, whether it's under PUA or unemployment insurance benefits, they will be backdated to the date you become unemployed. I know there's been a lot of difficulty with receiving benefits for the backdate, but rest assured, we have been told by the Department of Labor you will get those benefits. There just might be some missing information, and that might be why you have not received it thus far. And here is just another recap of the eligibility requirements for PUA benefits. So I know a lot of discrepancies thus far has been, why haven't I received my benefits? Because of that, the Department of Labor has streamlined a new application. Previously, individuals had to apply for regular unemployment insurance benefits and be denied before they were able to apply for PUA. Now, however, given the amount of issues the Department of Labor has had, they've created a new application which will determine which program, either unemployment insurance, UI, or PUA, you should be applying for, and then prompts you to answer program-specific questions. The Department of Labor will process the application and then contact you with any additional info if needed. And from what I've seen, most applications do require the additional information, so please be prepared to give it to them. Otherwise, it's going to take weeks and it will be delayed much longer.
right, and that's what I have seen, Hannah, and I'm sure you have seen also. If you make a mistake in these applications or you do something wrong, the likelihood of you getting your benefits on time is virtually none. is my understanding, is that you may end up in a black hole for a while until they get to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will go over some of those mistakes to look out for on your own applications so that you don't endure any more delays in receiving your benefits. And just as another tidbit, do not reapply with the new application if you've already applied through the old application. Some people are submitting more than one claim, and I know that is significantly delaying the Department of Labor website even more. So try to be patient. Okay. So I know this has been the biggest reason why people are attending today's webinars, reasons why my claim is delayed. Individuals with pending claims are experiencing claim delays for any number of reasons. First and foremost, the Department of Labor has been extremely backlogged due to the high volume of claims and phone calls. But given the new application, they've taken steps to remedy this, and they've also hired more call representatives. Now, to help minimize the backlog, they have stated to please not call them. They will call you and only file one claim. They have reiterated this on numerous occasions and through numerous representatives. The persistent calling is what is really backdating a lot of representatives and getting back to you. So please let them call you. Additional reasons that play a part in claim delays that I'll go over more in depth include inaccurate or missing information on the application, like we just went over, failing to respond to questionnaires, messages, or phone calls. Please watch out for those in your portal and in the mail. And there's also a lot of issues with certifying your benefits weekly.
You mentioned portal. I don't know that maybe people all don't understand what you mean by portal.
Portal. So I guess I'm used to using the word portal because that's what we call our system at the office. So I apologize. I don't know what to call it. Your benefits, your online permanent.
Your online access. So in other words, can you log in? I don't do this. Can you log in and you get into your own account? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. We've driven portal into my head so many times I can't even.
Oh no, I understand what a portal is. I was just making sure that everybody understands. Everyone, when you originally do this now, you sign in and you have your own account and you can log into it.
Mm-hmm.
Anna, we have a question about the PUA since we were just touching upon that. Janet is asking, can Uber drivers claim unemployment and what's the PUA? So I guess apparently, obviously, would it apply to her as an Uber driver?
Uber drivers can claim unemployment. I'm going to need a little bit more specifics as to if it applies to her situation, but generally Uber drivers can claim unemployment insurance benefits.
If you meet that whole list of one of those criteria that you just had up on it has to be COVID related in some way.
And Janet's also asking, what should she do if she can't get through to unemployment to complete the process? I think to your point, Anna, it's one thing if you were already able to get through and complete part of it, and you're awaiting a call and you're in the system, quote unquote. But it's another thing altogether if you can't even get through or there's glitches. I've had people tell me they can't even complete an initial claim to get into the system and get assigned a number because the website keeps crapping out on them, for lack of a better, that's not an official term, right? It's just how it feels like it kerplunks and kicks them out of the system.
In the event you're not actually able to get to that first step in completing your application or the first step in completing it, there are several avenues that you can use. Apart from calling, again, they are really deterring people from actually calling, but there's a hotline number that you can reach out to, I think Senator's office. There's a hotline that you can reach out to. You can call the phone number, give your social security, and it's basically putting your name and number in and then waiting for a call back. Again, when that actually might happen, I'm not sure. But if your claim hasn't been completed or there was an actual glitch, that may be worth trying to apply again if you reasonably think that it didn't go through the first time. But otherwise, I really wouldn't try submitting another claim, but try to get through if you haven't. Otherwise, the first few steps have been completed and you're waiting for that call back. I know a lot of people are frustrated because they're waiting for that initial phone call back. Please just wait for them to call you, because at some point they will get back to you.
And I have a question, and I know they've made one application, but it is true that the amount of information you're going to have to give if you're a PUA person, especially a self-employed PUA person, is going to be far more than for the regular unemployment, because they have to verify wages and a whole series of things before you are eligible. And that may take more time to get back to you about.
Yes, absolutely. And the good thing with the new application is it's streamlined so that you're essentially applying for both. So they will determine which one you more qualify for, which is the good thing. Bad thing is you also need a lot of information, which I will go over in a couple more slides.
Oh, interesting. To add to that, Tom does say, Anna, that utilizing the message system directly on your portal, I use the term, directly in your account with the Department of Labor on the website has shown to be a decent form of communication.
Okay, good.
So,
I'm glad to hear that.
Hey, a positive note, right?
Yeah. So I spoke with a woman earlier, and and again, this may have been through past experience. I don't know how recently she tried accessing it, but she indicated that that specific portal messaging avenue was actually disabled. So I'm very glad to hear that. Again, this is not something I've been able to personally experience because Mr. Stanley has graciously kept me employed. But from what I've been hearing, that has been the biggest difficulty is getting through. So I'm glad to hear that people are able to utilize that messaging system. Any other ones, Angela?
Not on unemployment.
Okay. So to keep this in mind, individuals have to remember that your first payment will generally be made within 2 to 3 weeks from the time your claim is completed and processed. And in some cases, like we just explained, the Department of Labor must get additional information before payment can actually be made, which therefore takes longer to get. During this time, your claim status is considered pending in your claim portal account, as I'm just going to keep calling it, and you will not receive benefits until the review is complete. So if benefits already take 2 to 3 weeks in and of itself to get, and you need to give additional information, you're potentially looking at a month and a half and waiting for your benefits, which is why it's extremely important to have all the requisite information. So with this in mind, to prevent any further delays, definitely have your social security number on hand and your driver's license or motor vehicle ID card number if you have either one. One caveat is to please do not use nicknames. The name you use to file your unemployment claim should be the name you use on your driver's license or social security card. This has created a lot of issues for some claimants, so please make sure that you use the appropriate name. Also, make sure to have a complete mailing address and zip code. After you do complete your application for a new claim for benefits, you will receive the monetary determination in the mail informing you of your weekly benefit rate. So it's important that this information is up to date. And as a reminder, if your wages are wrong or if any employers are missing in that monetary determination, please fill it out and send to the Department of Labor the request for reconsideration form.
Okay, a couple of questions, Anna.
Yep.
Albert says, my boss found out I was on unemployment, called me at home and chewed me out. He said he was going to call me back to work and tell them I was working. He called me back to a closed car dealership. I quit. Is this good cause? That's actually, maybe Joe, it's for you.
Is that good cause, Anna? The answer to that is those are factual based questions. I don't know. And there's always two sides to the story.
Sure.
If he calls you back, if you're called back to work, if he really did call you back to work whether the dealership was closed or not, because the dealerships always had ability to have people do repairs. I don't know what his scenario is, but if he legitimately called you back to work, you have to show up and work, and you can't quit unless you have another reason that presents good cause.
So if he shows up to work and the business is actually not open, and the dealer's trying to kind of, you know, work the system a little bit and say, hey, I've called you back to work, when really there is no work.
Well, that's different. But if he calls you back to work, he has to show that he's called you back to work. You showed up and you're going to pay. He's going to pay you. I mean, you cannot. That's
Right,
fraud.
right.
If he reports to unemployment that he called you back to work and is paying you, he's not. That's fraud on the employer's part.
Sure. Okay.
Those are things you can test. If that actually happened, you get your benefits denied, then you have a hearing.
And I'm not sure, but if is our car places considered essential employers right now?
No, but they've been allowed to do repairs, yes, for
Okay,
repair
so it
purposes.
depends on
Yes.
what
Yes,
facet
repairs,
of the
yes, but not
car
sales. Right.
industry you've been working as. Okay.
Right.
And as a reminder, employers can't take retaliation against their employees for getting unemployment if they were probably chosen to receive those benefits. So Joe's right. It's definitely a very fact-specific question. And if he has more information he would like to give, he could email one of us later on, and we could.
Okay, so as a quick reminder, Anna's email is arobbins, ROBBINS, at stanleylawoffices.com. Joe Stanley's is joe at stanleylawoffices.com. The Stanley Law Office website also has resources and information about the rest of the Stanley Law team, and that is at stanleylawoffices.com. The number to call is 1-800-608-3333. And we have offices based in Syracuse, as well as the ability to meet with clients in Watertown at our office there, Binghamton, Rochester, and in Montrose, Pennsylvania. So with that, Anna, do you have, we've got some other questions here, but they relate more to, I think, the business interruption, and there's a medical question.
Well, I'll keep going.
Okay, cool.
Let's see, where did I pick up? Also, make sure you have a good working phone number where you can be reached. Like I said previously, be sure to pick up the phone if your caller ID shows private caller. The Department of Labor representatives are working from home just like us, so it could very well be a rep calling from a remote location. There's an extreme high call volume, so like I said, please don't call them, let them call you. I understand this is completely frustrating time, not having any idea where your benefits are, but a lot of people are also wondering the same thing. So if you're having significant issues, like I said, please use the alternative forms of reaching out to your reps. Additionally, make sure you have your alien registration card if not a U.S. citizen, and have a card. Definitely have the names and addresses of your employers for the last 18 months, including those in other states. Now, to speed up the review of your claim, be sure to submit proof of your employment and wages. If you don't have any pay stubs, please send any documents you might have that can be used as proof. Also, another important caveat is the employer registration number or the federal employer identification number of your most recent employer. This is the absolute #1 holdup on a claim and the biggest delay as to why people aren't receiving their benefits, and it's because they don't know their employer's federal employer identification number. Now, this is a code that identifies each employer that can be found on your W-2 form. Businesses are legally obligated to provide this number to employees. So if your claim has been delayed, this might be why. And like the PowerPoint says, a copy of other forms if you're a federal employee, and your most recent DD-2 form from the military service. And again, please respond to all questionnaires, messages, and phone calls. If you don't, then that might be subject to further delay. Another little tidbit is if you choose to direct deposit for your weekly benefits, you will also need your bank routing information and your checking account numbers. The fastest way to get your money is choosing direct deposit to a checking account. The only other option is to put money on a bank card, a debit card, and the card is mailed to you, which obviously takes longer. And you can actually switch from debit card to direct deposit on the Department of Labor's website. So I highly suggest opening a checking account if you don't have one. Additionally, if you have filed a prior claim and you receive benefits on that prior claim by direct deposit, any benefits due to you on this claim will go to the bank account on the file. If your bank account has changed, immediately update your banking account info on the website. I was watching ABC News and I saw an interview, and one woman was distraught. She wasn't getting any benefits, and she realized that she had all this money going to an account that wasn't actually activated. So make sure you have the updated and appropriate information. That's extremely important.
Anna, we have an interesting question here. Patrick is asking, he says, my wife is a dental hygienist and is terrified to go back to work. Not sure if all the safety protocols are going to be in place at the practice. And she also has an underlying health condition. Can her employer, the dentist, can that dentist force her to return to work?
So that's a good question. It kind of dips into two different areas of unemployment and PUA benefits. Generally speaking, you can't refuse to go to work out of fear that you'll contract COVID. In order to remain on unemployment insurance benefits, you need to quit with good cause. With that in mind, if she has an underlying medical health condition, which I'm actually getting to towards the end of the presentation, there are certain steps that you can take in order to ensure that you meet the necessary qualifications of quitting with good cause. I have a whole PowerPoint on that, so I'll go over that a little bit more in depth towards the end if you don't mind. Just because I don't want to be repeating myself.
Okay.
So once you submit your claim and the Department of Labor has allowed you to do so, you must certify for benefits each week you remain employed. This has become another significant reason why there has been a delay in benefits for a lot of claimants. You must certify sometime between Sunday and Saturday for the previous week in order to receive benefits for that week, and you must continue to certify every week you're employed in order to continue receiving benefits. During this process, you're essentially confirming that you're unemployed for all or part of the past week and that you met all the other conditions of receiving benefits, so that you're ready and willing and able to work and that you meet the other requirements. Even if you worked just for an hour, you have to indicate it on the certification or risk being accused of fraud. This is extremely important. Truth is the best way to go. You have to disclose anything you may have received as income, and even if it's volunteer work, you have to disclose it. And as another caveat, you must certify within your area, and if you'll be outside of New York, you must let the Department of Labor know. There are also high penalties for certifying outside the country, so I don't suggest doing that. The Department of Labor can check this information by your internet address, which I thought was interesting. There's a note on the Department of Labor website stating if you have a service that makes your internet address anonymous, please turn it off when claiming weekly benefits. Otherwise, your certification may be blocked. So definitely keep that in mind.
Anna, I'm sorry,
Yep.
There's a question here from Donna Marie, who is a dentist, okay, or she knows someone that's a dentist. She said, it said that dentists were eligible to collect, but then it said no. They're only being allowed to see emergency patients or they get fined $10,000. So they're not allowed to operate at total capacity. And yet, according to her, what she understands is that she's also ineligible.
Right, and we'll go over that in just a moment.
Okay.
just because I have another whole slide on it. So you
Oh,
might,
okay.
don't want to repeat information.
Sure.
Another thing to keep in mind is the work search during COVID. Keep in mind each week you're certifying that you'll be asked if you're ready, willing, and able to work and have been actively looking for work. However, if you do collect unemployment or pandemic unemployment assistance, the work search requirements are a little more relaxed and you won't have to search for work if you were laid off because your employer closed or reduced operations due to COVID and the employer told you that you'll be called back to work when it reopens. Otherwise, you must search for work. I still suggest doing so remotely, regardless, just so you can submit proof to the Department of Labor if they ask for it. And certain ways to do that, you can complete job applications online, use certain social networking and other online tools to do job searches, calling or emailing employers, and participating in virtual workshops. Now, if you're actually called to attend an interview, you have to attend, but if you have any circumstances that prevent you from appearing, document them in your work search record. So here we are, return to work safety concerns. One question we often hear is, what if my essential business employer asks me back to work, but I'm in a high risk group for COVID due to health conditions? Just as a general caveat, I always remind people that a condition to receiving unemployment insurance benefits is that you lost your job through no fault of your own. Employees who voluntarily quit are not eligible for unemployment insurance unless they have good cause for quitting. Therefore, you will probably be ineligible if you quit out of fear that you'll contract COVID. So to prevent yourself from being disqualified, if you do have an underlying health condition, such as the woman at the dentist office, try to obtain a doctor's note. Actually, you must obtain a doctor's note stating that you can't work in that environment. And once you have that medical record documentation, contact your employer and see if they're able to make reasonable accommodations, whether it's time off or working from home. And if they can't work out your employment in a way that keeps you safe, you may have good cause to quit. And I know that kind of leads into another question, which is, what if my employer's working conditions are not that safe, or what if my employer isn't following the rules, right? There is a little bit of lack of clarity in this area, but like I indicated before, please leave a paper trail. You can file a written complaint with OSHA, write to your employer, explain that the conditions are not safe per CDC guidelines, that you need to fix it. If you're actually called into work and people aren't abiding by the necessary guidelines, at that point you might have good cause to quit. But Joe and I spoke about some of these issues a few days ago, and I think this is an important time to remind people too that although it's important to keep track of your safety and make sure that you are receiving your benefits, they are only temporary. So if you do quit even with good cause, once this wave is over and your temporary benefits are done, then you're still at the point where you still have to apply for another job. So you're out of a job. So I think it's kind of a cost benefit analysis, if you will.
I agree with that. And the point about with these phased openings we're going to be doing, as I understand it, the state is requiring each county to have someone, an entity, who supervises the requirements for employers to open. Social distancing, testing, sanitation, whatever is going to be required for that particular business to be able to stay open. So I suspect that if they're not complying, you need to file a complaint with that particular entity, document it with pictures or other documentation, and see what the response is, because part of the reopening plan is that businesses and for their employees and for their customers are going to meet the criteria. And if they're not doing it, or one doesn't do it, then everyone else doesn't think they're going to have to do it. So this is, you know, we all have to work together on this, and some of this is going to be problematic, I can see, because you know that every employer is not going to want to comply with the conditions that the state is going to impose.
Yep. Paper trail. That is the best way you can ensure that, you know, you're saving yourself in the long run.
Here's a question as you're going to your next work safety, or whatever your next slide, I should say, Anna. From Wendy, she says that they got a letter, she received a letter saying that her personal information may be compromised after the Department of Labor sent letters to the wrong people. She said that they're offering free credit monitoring for 1 year as a result of that, but after the year is up, is the state liable if something happens, or is it all just on the people because of just everything so?
Well, there's a good standard. That's a question all the time for every data breach that occurs. And the answer is theoretically depends on how they did it. But, you know, the state has a New York State Court of Claims Act, and you have to file a claim against them within 90 days, even if you don't know if you've been harmed. So theoretically, you've been harmed. So you can file this notice of intention to file a claim. That's what they're called. But the value of doing that is probably not worth much, because it's a question of, is there any legal liability and how would you prove harm? And by the time you did have harm, the ability to file the claim against the state may have already expired, although that could be up to 3 years or 2 years or whatever. Let's hope you don't have any problem. That's my answer for all of these data breaches, is that everyone should watch their credit reports and watch everything that comes in, because there's so many data breaches now that you can assume that you've been hacked. The question is anybody going to take advantage of it?
All right. So one interesting caveat, which I haven't actually received any questions about this, but I thought it was something that it's worth bringing up. If you live in one state and work in another, you should apply in the state where you work during your base period. For example, if you currently live in another state, but all of your work for the past 18 months has been in New York, you must file your claim with New York. Now, if you worked in 2 or more states the past 18 months, you must file your claim with one of the states where you work, no matter where you lived. And you may be able to combine your wages from all of the states where you worked in the past 18 months, or you may use the wages earned in the filing state, which has the highest benefit amount. Again, that would be an inquiry for that specific state. I just wanted to bring it to people's attentions just in case it actually did apply to them. There is a telephone claim center for both inquiries to be made in. And if you are looking for work outside of New York State or plan to move, don't forget that you must tell the Department of Labor, and they will tell you how to transfer your claim.
Anna, we have a question. Now, this is to the Uber. There's an individual that's an Uber driver. He's an Uber driver. His wife is high risk. She has an underlying condition. Does this qualify him for unemployment? That's an interesting.
The answer to that is, unless she actually becomes sick, the answer is no. I mean,
so being at risk doesn't.
No, we're all at risk to some degree.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Okay.
He actually has to see a reduction in his work that he's actually having.
I think what he's saying is he probably doesn't want to go out and Uber drive, because if that, let's say, for example, that's the only vehicle his wife is riding in, right? That's the
that would be, yeah, like Joe said, just because she's immunosuppressed or what have you doesn't necessarily mean you can actually claim it.
And by the way, we had a little bit of a technical glitch and the Facebook Live crapped out on my phone. So I had to log back into it on my phone, which means for whatever reason, it's not giving me a couple of the earlier questions. So for the woman who had the question about the barbershop, if you could resubmit your question, I'm sorry, but if you could resubmit it, and then I can see it. And then there was another question about a medical bill that you received. It's almost nearly 5 years old, I believe. If you could resubmit that question to me so that I could see it. Sorry about the tech glitch, but we're dealing with it as we go, right? So, okay, Anna, go ahead.
So for my last slide, I have part-time work. What if I work part-time? This was covered during our last webinar, but we've been receiving a lot of questions about this. So I figured it was worth going over again. Now in New York, partial unemployment is based on the number of days worked, not hours. So you can get partial unemployment insurance benefits if you worked fewer than 4 days and made less than $504 a week. Now, each day you work, even if it's just for 1 hour, counts as a day of work, causing your benefits to drop by 25%. So if possible, try to limit your part-time work to 1 day or to 2 days a week possible, just so you can receive the unemployment insurance benefits.
And as we
In
do,
other words, rather than getting 9 hours assigned over the course of 4 days or something, try to get those 9 hours.
If you work 4 or more days, even if it's just for 1 day, 1 hour each day, you're technically full-time and you're precluded from receiving.
and also, as we discussed, if you have 2 jobs, which we haven't done, say you have 2 jobs, you work 5 days a week in both those jobs. If you even work 1 hour a day in one of them, you're out of luck. So the way the crazy rules work. So if you get laid off of your full-time job, but you're still working part-time, you lose all you can't file for that full-time job unemployment. So these are quirks of the system that you never really think about until it happens.
Yeah. So Angela, I am good for more questions. Otherwise, this was
I think we've got all the unemployment questions, at least thus far. I think we've got that covered. Anna, can you share again your email in case someone wants to email directly?
Yep, A Robbins, ROBBINS at StanleyLawOffices.com.
All right, so with that, this is just a quick reminder. We are talking unemployment today, and as well as business interruption, which we're going to segue into next. There were some business interruption questions posted earlier in the feed, and I am having a technical issue with this. So if you could repost that question so that I could see it. There was one about a barbershop, someone who owns a barbershop. Another was about a medical bill that I don't think is business interruption question per se, but a question for you, Joe, which you are a personal injury attorney, but you take questions in your radio interviews, et cetera, that you do in television interviews. You cover the gamut because I know that you believe that information and knowledge to be your own best advocate is vitally important, and that you see your part of your role in what you do is paying that information forward, if you will. So
Well, I can answer the question about the medical bill pretty easily. The statute of limitations for a breach of contract, which is what medical services are, 6 years. Why they waited 5 years, and if it was a health insurance claim and that somebody was supposed to file a health insurance claim, those become problematic. And so we would need more information to find out what defenses you have and what the scenario is.
Okay. All right, so hopefully that helps whoever. All right, I'm gonna, Joe, I'm pulling up your slides now. Let's just everybody give me a sec here to deal with technology being what it is. View, there we go. Okay.
All right, business interruption insurance. And I'm gonna start out, this is a primer about what it is. Most of the information is going to be only for educational purposes, because the bottom line on this is probably not going to be great for everybody who is interested in any information. But business interruption information is a part of a commercial insurance policy. It's a commercial insurance policy has property damage and both liability coverage, just like you would on your homeowners policy. If you have a homeowners policy, it has a liability coverage for if something happens and somebody brings a claim against you. And then it's got a property damage part, meaning if your house burns down, you have a flood or something happens that's covered, you get reimbursed. Well, the same thing is true for businesses. And part of that property damage coverage is this business interruption. Now, business owners or tenants can both have it on their policies, just as a renter or a homeowner can have renter insurance or homeowners insurance, okay? So those are the scenarios. You have a commercial policy. You probably have business interruption insurance, but maybe not, because it is a separate kind of endorsement. So first thing is, of course, do you even have it? If you don't have it, then there's not really any issue. So we can go on to the next slide. And what does it cover? Well, essentially, meaning business interruption covers your loss of income. It may cover other things. It may cover the rents you have to pay. It may cover certain other things. And again, that's a policy endorsement provision. As a commercial business owner, those are things you need to look at when you buy these policies, see what you actually can collect if you have a covered loss, which is the most important thing we're going to talk about here. We can go on to the next slide. And you always need, if you're going to have a claim, if I'm going to assist you with a claim, if we're going to talk about your claim, you need to have the entire policy. And this means entire, every word for word. This doesn't just mean a list of what your coverages are, because particularly for business endorsement, but for almost any kind of insurance coverage question, we need to read the whole policy to understand how it fits in the scheme, to see if they use the proper words and that if they followed what the law requires of them, and if they actually excluded or covered your situation. And you might think every policy is the same. That's not true. Every policy can be different. And here's just a list of potential endorsements that might be on your policy, some of which are relevant to a business interruption insurance are of course, the business income coverage form, what is actually covered. And then the next, what are the causes of losses that are covered? And then there are sometimes subcategories to the causes of losses that are covered are specifics. For instance, is there a governmental order exclusion? Is there a virus bacteria exclusion? Are there conditions in which your property had to be in at the time of the claim before you can make the claim? So again, this becomes something that we as lawyers and you as the person who owns the policy needs to understand in pursuing any insurance claim, but in particular a business interruption claim.
And I just want to, while you're there, we have someone who's in the insurance industry, Joe, that has just commented. Tim, thank you for your comment. Tim says, I work in the insurance industry and I want to echo what Joe is saying. There is no substitute for reviewing the entire policy, as they are not all the same.
So true, Tim, so true. And if you're in the insurance industry, you know that. Yeah, from company to company. And sometimes they don't even write the policies that they're supposed to write under the New York statutes. So you never know what you got till you read it. And sometimes when you read it, you don't know what you have, but that's a different issue. Now, when you have a policy, of course, it's got to describe what's covered and what you have. So again, this is what we already talked about, but these are just things that when you get them, you may not have ever even looked at these, and you may have relied on your agent to cover you for the things you needed. But this is just a piece of advice, particularly for a business policy. You need to understand what you're buying and what's covered and what's not. And in these particular days, you need a business interruption policy, but you also can have a business interruption policy for computer damage and for hacking or whatever. That's a separate policy. They gotten very expensive, but many businesses are computer run. And if your system is corrupted or fails and you don't have that particular coverage, your business doesn't run, but you have no business interruption coverage. So you as a business owner need to understand what your business is, and with your agent or yourself, understand if you have this or this happen, am I covered? Will it pay any of my losses?
I do have a question here, Joe, from Trish, that question from earlier regarding the barber shop. She says, my dad's a barber and he owns a barber business. He has underlying issues, COPD, diabetes, and high blood pressure. Can he close his business and collect unemployment for the 39 weeks?
No, I can say that he'd be a PUA issue, and and he's not. I don't think he covers, and I don't think he would fit in any one of those PUA categories. Now, I don't know his age and I don't know his health. He might want to consider Social Security disability.
Okay. Are you hearing? I hope you're hearing that, Trish. So Social Security disability may be an option.
But also, self-employed people, again, they need to understand what their risks are, and that I'm not an insurance person, but disability insurance is something that as a self-employed person, you always want to consider, because you're far more likely to become disabled than you are die. You're only going to die once, but the disability is much more likely. And so he's probably, with those health conditions, not eligible to get disability insurance, but he might be eligible for Social Security disability, meaning that you collect your retirement early. But hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, so we're, do we need to be on this slide, Joe?
We can go on the next slide. The
next
slide.
One, okay.
Again, these are different coverages I think we've already talked about. The one thing about here, co-insurance, again, when you're buying policies, you need to understand property policies, that co-insurance is a means of an insurance company. They want to limit their payments. If you don't have a certain amount of insurance on your property, meaning at least 80% of the full value, whatever that might mean in their opinion, they can reduce their payouts. So you need to understand what co-insurance is in some circumstances. And that's, again, just important when you're buying insurance.
Yeah, Tim Dodge says he's sitting nodding his head, Joe. He's in the insurance industry and he's agreeing with you. He's sitting there nodding his head, because how many times have we, I mean, you don't. It's complex, it's lengthy, and you just you get that policy. I know, even just with my vehicle, I get the policy and I go, oh, okay, I've got that, now I've got it, right? And then I set it aside. But because it's a lot of it's boilerplate, it's lengthy, a lot of it's not something I understand, and I just trust that my insurance person, did right by me.
Well, but they don't understand you as much as you need to understand yourself and what you need. And again, this next slide just goes through what is available on your coverage form. This is just a listing of what is available. But again, this is just part of the insurance policy.
John Mason does. John says, thanks, Joe, for touching on co-insurance because many don't understand co-insurance.
I know a lot of lawyers don't know what co-insurance is. So that's Anna, do you know what co-insurance is? She's not listening. She's not.
No, look at she's reading her cell phone.
I know.
I was reading emails that I've been getting from people.
I was just giving her a hard time. We can go on to the next slide.
So
Now where we're going to now is the property damage policies, which is what we're talking about, have the business interruption coverage, okay? And what they all are going to say in one shape, form, or another, and this is certain kinds of language that are from some of the policies, but what they all say is that this is a property damage policy, and that in order for you to claim a business interruption recovery, you have to have a property damage claim. In other words, damage to your property or something that interferes with the actual use of your property that is covered by this policy. So what they are saying is that you have a business, you don't get business interruption coverage unless something happened to the building, it burned down, there was a flood, there was electrical shortage, or the people that were supposed to deliver things to you, their building burned down, or they had a flood, because that's a suspension. But the issue that we're going to find out with COVID here is that every insurance company is going to say that there was never going to have been any physical loss, in their opinion, to your business, and therefore they're not going to pay any claim. All right, so we understand that that's where we are. And it applies to a tenant, and it applies to the owner. And whether it's a suspension or whether it's a cessation, it still has to be caused by a physical harm.
And also, Tim is adding here, as well as Joe Convertino, Joe over at CH Insurance, they're both talking about there's math involved in co-insurance, just as a heads up, and it does scare a lot of people off.
Oh, well, yeah, we're not, the co-insurance, we won't go into that because you could get into.
And Joe Convertino at CH is just saying the best is an agreed amount at replacement cost. So when you're going through your policy with your insurance company, just making sure that you're very crystal clear on what that replacement cost is going to be, and then what is the amount that you need based on that replacement cost. But Tim is saying, Joe, in terms of the flood insurance as well, though, that most property insurance policies do not cover flood damage.
Oh, no, I actually, what I mean, your business got flooded. They aren't covered at all. No, I'm talking about your pipes break and your business is flooded and there's electrical shortage and your building can't run. No, an actual flood, no, they are not. Flood coverage is never part of this. And there is no
separate policy.
Yeah, that's a separate policy that you can buy from some insurance companies, but he's right. Yeah. When I said your building is flooded, I'm talking about from a normal problem with the operation of the business, not from a outside influx of water.
Natural disaster, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and again, the answer to this is, okay, we're going to assume that we can move on now, is that you've got your business has been shut down by the government. That's 95% of these. Okay. It's been shut down by the government. Okay. And, that isn't going to be a physical harm to your building. Okay. Now, as you see here, the earth movement's not covered generally, although you can buy earth movement coverage. Floods aren't covered. Many things aren't covered, but we're assuming that one of the things that isn't covered is, as part of the policy itself, there is no physical harm, because when the government closes you down, there's nothing wrong with the building. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with your
It didn't
business.
meet these other basic criteria that would put it in a,
Yes.
right.
Okay, which we're talking about, of course. Now, this is where the policies can come into play, though. Okay, so yes, there has to be a physical loss, but how is that interpreted? What does physical loss mean? Well, a lot of these policies go on to say we're not going to pay regardless of for any governmental order that shuts the business down. Now, if that exclusion is there, that's not helpful in one of these business interruption claims arising out of COVID. Furthermore, there may be some that apply to mold, virus, bacteria that are not going to pay for any interruption because of that. Now, those, of course, are not really referencing a pandemic. Those are talking about issues that can arise out of a physical harm to the building itself. But they're just saying, even if that's physical harm, that you have mold or mildew, or there was a bacteria in there and destroyed, for instance, all the hay. I think there's something that all the hay can be destroyed. And you couldn't feed your cows or whatever. If that exclusion was in there, that they would raise that as a defense. So we've got the basic exclusion of it needs to be a physical harm to the building. And then they make them more specific, saying even if the government orders a shutdown, we're making it more broad. And then if it's a virus, that could be interpreted as being more broad. Okay. Now, for business interruption, as I've put in here a million times, is that you as the policy owner have to prove you have a covered loss. Okay. You have to prove you have a covered loss. And everyone I have talked to at this point in time who has submitted a claim has had their claim denied. Okay.
And that's because there are the virus, and like Joe Convertino just said, because viruses and bacteria are excluded.
Well, it depends. Again, that's why you have to read every policy. The government, I feel that the government mandate is far more persuasive than the virus and bacteria exclusion, because that is not really what we're talking about. In fact, I don't think that's specific enough. If you were going to say we're limiting pandemics, by the way, they have changed the policies now. The new form policies they're recommending you use say we exclude pandemics, any damages arising out of pandemics. So they've just come out within the last month. So they're already on top of it.
They're already getting that language in there.
Yes. But so we have three levels. You have the basic one that just says physical harm. Then you have the basic one that then adds governmental shutdown and or viruses. Those are the ones that would generally apply here. And then you also have what are the levels of your reimbursement. If your loss was covered, what would you get back? Okay. So, okay. What's going to happen here? I can tell you what's going to happen here. They're going to deny every claim, okay? They're going to deny every claim because they're going to say they're not covered because of whatever reason. But that's why when we started this out, we have to know what the policy says, okay?
Right.
And the best policy is the one that only just says physical harm. If it doesn't have any of the specific exclusions, there are arguments, legal arguments that can be made. If it doesn't have the governmental exclusion, but only has the virus one, there are other arguments that can be made. If it has all three, there are public policy arguments that can be made, because the real answer is that for most people, they didn't really understand what they were buying, because if it only covers you with very, very limited circumstances, then probably the premium you were paying wasn't worth it, if you understood what you were going to get.
Now, interestingly, Joe, Tim, our gentleman here that's in the insurance business, he said that ISO forms,
Yes.
cover loss caused by government action, but only if a property in the area was damaged by a covered cause of loss.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's if the government orders somebody to go knock down a building. because there was a structural damage and
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah, well, but these policies, by the way, sometimes they read ambiguously, and sometimes the exclusions and the coverages don't really agree with each other, which as a lawyer, that's how we can make law. We have made law in the past reforming insurance policies or getting coverages where there didn't appear to be any. And I think what's going to happen here is I'm telling everybody, you need to apply. You need to get all the documentation together that they request or is required under the policy and give it to them and let them deny it. Okay?
At least take the action.
Yes, because there may be governmental action that requires them to accept some or all of these. There may be court cases we decide to bring all of these together as one class action to reform the policies. So there are all possible steps that might be taken.
And we don't know at this point, like you said, Joe, things unfold and shift in ways that are completely unpredictable at this point because we've never been here before.
Right.
So
And
if you're at least advocating for yourself, you're at least getting yourself in the game, right?
Well,
so that,
and all the information that you will need to make this claim is going to be important for many business decisions you have to make. You should need to know what your losses are, what your harms are, where and how it's going to affect you going forward and has affected you, so you can understand your financials anyway. So you should have this information, and obviously it'll be important for your tax returns if you haven't, you're going to file them next year.
yes, and both Tim and Joe Convertino, Joe, are saying they agree. Make the claim. Let the insurance company decide. And Joe Convertino is saying this is what their clients are doing. They're submitting the claim. They're stating loss of income due to COVID-19. And then at least it's on the record, right? And we'll see where the chips fall from there.
And also, by the way, the statute of limitations on these, I think is 2 years in most of these policies. And again, I didn't look that up, but I'm pretty sure that most of these policies have some kind of a statute of limitations that's shorter than the 6 years. New York statute of limitations for contracts is 6 years, but most insurance policies do not. Now, there's a difference filing a claim and having them a denial. Now, they may, some company may, if they don't deny it timely, remember, they have to deny it timely. There's another argument to be made. Now, it's a question of whether this is an exclusion or whether it's a coverage question. Most of these are exclusions, so they're not really coverage questions. So they have to do it timely. That's another reason why you send it in, and they only have a reasonable time to investigate and deny. And so that's another possible reason you may win, even if they had an exclusion, but if they don't timely tell you we're not going to pay you, they could lose that right.
Tim says 2 years sounds right. He believes that that's correct. Now, Tim is with the Big I, Joe, and the Big I is, and I'm asking them to give me some language to explain this, but my understanding, Big I is that's a body of that represents all insurance, the insurance industry.
Yes.
Big I New York, it's a trade association that represents
Yes.
independent insurance agencies
Yes.
and brokerages all over the state of New
Yeah.
York. Well, thank you, Tim, and welcome. Thank you for your insight, and thank you to Joe Convertino over at Siege Insurance for adding affirmation to some of this. Before I wrap up with you, Joe, I want to also just say that we are here to talk on employment as well, which I'm watching the numbers fluctuate. The more often we talk about unemployment, the more people are tuning in, because as we all expected, that is even more universal than business interruption coverage. So Anna, you said earlier that before I kick it back to Anna, Joe, is there anything else that you want to add just right in this moment with respect to insurance and any final insights there?
No, I think that we all have to be patient. We all need to investigate what our rights are and figure out, how to proceed forward. And that's why we're answering these questions. We're trying to help people put them in as best position as they can be when they come out of the other side of this. And you want to be guided so that you understand, okay, I'm not going to get this, or the odds are I'm not going to get this. whether it's unemployment or whether it's business interruption or whatever it is, but here's what I need to do to at least give myself a shot. And these other questions are going to keep coming up because it's a moving target and there's going to be issues we haven't even thought of.
Jamie adds in, Joe, Louisiana already has retroactive legislation pending to pay these losses. And New Jersey, Ohio, Massachusetts, and New York are also looking at it right now.
Yeah, well, no, I understand that there's going to be some kind of, whatever it is going to be something. The insurance companies, of course, are looking for them to be somebody to give them reimbursement if they have to pay some of these claims. And so the question is, should they bear the responsibility for the claims that they collect, for premiums they collected, or do the taxpayers have to reimburse them? Of course, I'm adverse to having the taxpayer have to bail out the insurance companies who are fairly profitable and have collected premiums for these. So we'll see how that goes as time passes.
As time passes, that's right. And as I mentioned earlier, time is this interesting dynamic right now that feels
Time
unusual
anymore.
flow right of it. So okay, so we're going to kick this back to Anna. And Anna, you said you were earlier, I know you were checking your emails and people were sending questions in.
Yeah, I got a question that was already answered from the presentation. It was initially sent to a wrong email address, which is why I had a confused look. So, but it was a question.
Bring that question up again and just touch on, I mean, we've been on here almost an hour and a half and there may be people on here that missed your presentation. Certainly you can go back, viewers, you can go back and watch the video. It's archived. It'll be right in our videos section here on Facebook, and we'll also be uploading it later. It's going to be in the cloud, so I've got to download it. It takes a little while, but and we'll get that loaded to the Stanley Law YouTube channel. But Anna, if you just want to maybe give a summary about unemployment and the primary points and the FAQs that you've been facing seemingly day after day, week after week, particularly since our last session.
Yeah. To the best extent possible, patience. I know, I think the delay in benefits is one of the biggest problems we are seeing thus far. Please just be diligent in responding to any and all phone calls, questionnaires, etc. Check your claim status in your portal account to see if it has gone through or not. Otherwise, you will be receiving a phone call at some point in time. As someone indicated before, a good way of getting through is through the messaging system. So I highly encourage people to do that. Otherwise, if there are questions about whether or not you should be returning to work, think about whether you have good cause to quit, or whether you should, or whether your employer is following the appropriate CDC guidelines and recommendations. And also just think about your long-term effects and what you expect to get out of this in the long run. So
yeah, because if you might be worried about contracting COVID, as we all are, but it is not, seemingly in most cases, what I'm hearing, it's not just cause to quit.
Yeah, and then at the end of the 39 weeks, you're out of a job and you're left searching for a job. So it's kind of
and of course you end up having someone gives you a bad reference. If you're going to put down an employer, you never can tell what an employer is going to say or doesn't say about you if someone asks for a reference. So
that's a good point.
These are all things that are, whether they're ethical or not, there's no guarantee that anyone's ever going to be ethical. We can certainly attest to that in our business. Most people are, but you never know how people are going to react or how they are operating in this time.
Well, and speaking of which, Joe, how are you operating in this time? How is it going? I mean, Anna, you've got a different perspective from Joe, has a different perspective from Stephanie and Megan and everyone on the team, Anthony, Rob, et cetera. But how is it going from a business owner's perspective? There are dynamics and then the personal dynamics that are at play. Can you speak to that?
Well, I think we're doing well. We're doing everything we would do as if we were all in one place. The only thing we lose is the ability to working as a team all the time versus only some of the time. I think you lose out. And I think everybody knows that. And I think a lot of people are figuring out that working remotely is everything that it was made out to be. It has some advantages, but it has a lot of disadvantages. But until otherwise, we're doing everything. We're not being held back. What's holding us back is the court system themselves, because our leverage as lawyers is filing suits and moving cases along in the system. And right now, without that, the insurance companies can do whatever they want because they know there's no movement. And so hopefully the courts are going to be opening soon. So the claims will be resolved as they should be, either fairly or by litigation.
Now, Joe, just yesterday, you and I had this conversation that there is word that, well, there are many, as they're phasing this in, is it my understanding Onondaga County is not opening, along with Mohawk Valley and some of the other surrounding counties?
I think they're going to find out tomorrow. And I think in the scheme of things, I think they are, but the answer to that as we move along is that until it gets to a point where it's phase 3 or phase 4 or 5, I don't see, full-blown jury trials as being feasible for a long time because of the number of people you have to bring in. So I think the courts will be functioning. I don't know how they're going to operate trials. I'm not privy to the Office of Court Administration's deliberations on that. I think they should move faster. If car dealers can be open, then at least the courts, in my opinion, can be handling all the matters they need to be handling, right, other than actual trials.
Okay, and as far as just to circle back, because this is it is a consideration, Joe, your firm works has a completely dedicated team, in fact, with the Fallons and their group to workers' compensation. Any updates on that front? I mean, is that continuing to operate?
Well, no, they have the luxury of everything is still going.
Still working.
Yeah, that has really, the only impact there is the medical part, is that the doctors and their so-called independent medical exams aren't as numerous as they could be, because some of their IME doctors, I use that word, I only use that word loosely, aren't doing exams because they have their own fears. Right.
Anna, anything else that you would like to add? And then I'm going to wrap up with some final resource information.
Not that I can think of. I just hope everyone stays safe and healthy and try to get through this together.
So if you have unemployment questions, you're welcome to email Anna. And again, it's arobbins, ROBBINS, @StanleyLawOffices.com. If you have business interruption questions or any questions relating to Social Security disability, business interruption, personal injury, certainly, or anything that is falls outside the scope of unemployment as well, you can certainly email Joe.
No, we're still in business, actually. If you actually are hurt in any kind of accident, we'd be glad to help you.
Yes. And the website is StanleyLawOffices.com. The team is always there for you. And just like Joe is advocating for you putting in your claim for unemployment or putting in your claim for business insurance interruption, I would say, if you want to speak with your lawyer, if you want answers to your questions, and you're not getting the traction you want, be diligent. Just like with the Department of Labor, just be diligent. Be diligent with your attorney. Take accountability and responsibility to reach out and get the answers that you're seeking. And you can always email Joe directly. I have never, in 15 years of working with Joe Stanley, I have never known him not to return an email. If there was a technical glitch or something, or somehow it got lost into his spam, that's one thing. But in terms of, I mean, I don't know how he does it. I don't know how you do it, Joe, but you answer hundreds of emails every day. And so if you're not getting the traction.
You can ask my staff. They're very brief.
They are brief, and sometimes they're even a little cryptic.
Oh,
Oh.
no Stanley cryptography.
But it is because of the sheer volume that he's going through and best intentions to get you the information that you need. He does many, many live interviews and recorded interviews weekly between television and radio, always from the standpoint of getting you information so you can be your own best advocate. And with that, I will say congratulations, Joe, and to all of those volunteers out there. It has been an unprecedented time in light of the situation and the circumstances we're facing for Music for the Mission, in its donations and its efforts, its storytelling, just countless volunteers and people stepping up. I don't know, Joe, if you want to take a moment to talk about Music for the Mission, because I know it's near and dear to your heart.
Well, you know, Music for the Mission, for those of you who don't know, is our charity, all volunteer, that we use music to bring help to the homeless and the hungry in our communities, particularly important at this time because there's a lot of people, but for the grace of God, could be us. And so we are restricted in the sense we used to do events because you know, music is something that everybody loves. And now we are just trying to do things virtually, but the need to help others is still very important. So if you can go to the musicforthemission.org and check us out. If you can't afford to contribute, that's fine, but you can check out and see what we do. Join in, you know. Maybe you can sing a song for us. It won't be me.
There you go.
It won't be me. We've had people volunteer to sing songs for us.
Yes, we've even had Joe volunteer.
I'm not singing.
Is this an open invitation, Joe?
Yeah, that was a punishment if people didn't donate to a certain event. I would sing as a punishment if you didn't make an adequate donation.
If you don't donate, Joe will sing. There we go.
But, you know, however you can help, and if not, join our community anyways, because everyone is welcome. And,
yes.
You know,
through celebration of music and the recognition of the incredible talent that exists in our local communities, from concert promoters to venue operators to the musicians themselves, and all of the media partners that we have. You know, you see Joe on television and hear him in radio, and there are a lot of people that work behind the scenes. I saw some of them on the webinar today. Thank you for joining us and for your continued support through this interesting time that we're all in together. So with that, thank you again. StanleyLawOffices.com, the number to call with a question. Even though the team is working remotely, they're taking your calls and forwarding them accordingly to the paralegal or attorney that is relevant for your potential case or current case. So that number, 1-800-608-3333. And until next time, Anna, thank you ever so much. Thank you for all your hard work on your slides and information. Joseph, thank you again. Everyone stay safe, be well, God bless, and we'll probably see you again soon.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.